Teacup, Tempest by Wigworm. Okay, Asuma stood before his team. I already have our mission for today, so we don't have to go by the missions desk. There was a yay from Choji, a fake cheer from Ino, and a mildly excited limp away from the boy laying on the table on his back.
Well, Azuma-sensei, what are we doing?
Yamanaka Ino stood beside the picnic table with her hands on her hips.
Running errands, retrieving groceries? And why are we working on a Saturday?
Something a bit more important than that, Ino-chan. Asuma tossed the girl the scroll that he had. It's a bodyguard mission. Ino's smile turned sharkish.
Oh, really?
She started unrolling the scroll.
Will we be in danger?
Only if you mess up, Asuma cautioned. I mean, I might not survive if the primary isn't in perfect health at the end of the day. Glimmering aqua eyes narrowed as Ino read the scroll.
Asuma-sensei, this bodyguard mission is for a 2-year-old.
Choji slumped, disappointed at another babysitting job. Shikamaru sat up, though, looking at Asuma with a curious expression. So, Shikamaru drawled out, kid of someone you know, Asuma-sensei? Asuma smiled at the boy's perceptiveness. He nodded and gestured for Shikamaru to continue his train of thought. You said you might not survive, so... The parent of this kid is Jonin. Asuma nodded again. A highly placed Jonin. Another nod. Correct, Shikamaru-kun. Asuma patted his pockets and then swore under his breath. Maki must have filched his smokes when she'd passed him earlier in the morning in the hallway. She never did like the fact that he smoked, and she would steal his cigarettes for a week every time after he smoked in Kakashi's apartment. Given that he'd had smoke blown in his face from his father since he'd been born, Asuma didn't know why she was all up in arms about occasionally smoking in Kakashi's place, even though there was usually a baby there. Sensei? Choji piped up, curious about what he was doing. Sorry, Choji-kun. Someone must have pickpocketed my smokes. Maki had very light fingers. Asuma hadn't once caught her in the act. Anyway, yes, Hito-chan is indeed the son of a very powerful Jonin, and a surprising bubbly Junin. But it's Jonin I'm worried will castrate me if Hito-chan gets injured. Shikamaru and Ino shared a look, and then Ino's eyes practically lit up on fire.
Hatake-san! We're going to be babysitting Sharingan no Kakashi's son!
The bearded Jonin sensei nodded. Yup.
Wait.
Ino raised a hand.
Are we going to be babysitting Sharingan no Kakashi's son in his own apartment?
She looked at Asuma, and Asuma felt a little, cowering away from the intensity. Yeah, no, I don't think so, Ganin-chan. Kakashi spoke up from behind the team, and all 3 Ganin whipped around so fast that Asuma feared whiplash. Shikamaru was the first to speak up. Hatake-san? There was a toddler in his arms and a blonde woman holding one of his hands. Said toddler was wearing a mask that matched the color of his shirt, and when the morning sun caught his hair in the right light, it turned from gold to silver, seemingly flickering from his mother's color to his father's. Hey, Kakashi nodded to Asuma and said, Hito down. We need a day to ourselves, and Asuma volunteered to watch Hito. And Kakashi wasn't lying. What Asuma was sure that Kakashi didn't know was that the Sarutobi was trying to impress Kurenai by showing off his ability to care for children. What Asuma didn't know was that Kakashi knew he had a crush on the Genjutsu expert, and after talking it over with Magi, they decided that they'd allow the man to show off a little with Hito. They didn't trust him after all. What about the daycare? Choji piped up, interested. The daycare had been his family's idea after all, so he knew all about it and what it was used for. Shut down for 2 days. Maki spoke up, coming more fully into the Ganin's view, and Ino gasped at the woman. One of the children came in with a chicken pox, and now Mito-san has to disinfect the entire building. You're so pretty! Ino gushed, interrupting Maki. Your eyes and your hair! Maki blushed and laughed. Thanks! She leaned towards Ino a little. You know, you're the first one to say that to me in a long time. Kakashi cocked his head to the side. I told you, I think you look beautiful, he murmured. Yes, dear. She patted his arm absently, attention still on Ino. Are you one of the Ganin that will be watching Hito-chan today? Yes, ma'am. Ino tucked her arms behind her back and scuffed the floor with one of her sandals. I'm Yamanaka, Ino. It's very nice to meet you, Ino-chan. You may call me Maki if you wish. Maki smiled indulgently at the 13-year-old girl, and Ino blushed even harder.
Yes, Maki-san.
Asuma was startled to realize that Ino had a tiny case of idolization going on with the blind Chunin woman. He wondered if that would do some good for Ino, having someone like Maki to look up to. He decided that it couldn't hurt and smiled at his team, proud of them. Kachan? Dochan? Hito clutched tight to Kakashi's pants and both adults crouched next to their son.
Hey, Hito-chan.
Maki threaded her fingers through his dark hair and hugged him.
Asuma-ji-chan is going to watch you today, yeah?
Asuma-ji? Hito mangled Azuma's name a bit and Kakashi grinned behind his mask. Yes, Hito-chan. You'll be good for Azuma-ji-chan like you are for Kurenai-ba-chan. Hito's blue eyes sparkled up at Kakashi and the boy nodded. Yes, To-chan! Very good! Kakashi hugged the boy as well when Hito's thin arms encircled his neck. When the parents had finished their goodbyes to Hito, Asuma made his way over to them and let Hito take his hand. Hito looked up at him with wide eyes, and Asuma couldn't help but smile back. Anko was the most serious that Kakashi had ever seen her when she appeared out of nowhere, striding towards him as though she were on her way to her own execution. Kakashi! She stopped before him and he looked her up and down lazily. Whatever it was that she had to say, it couldn't be that important because Kakashi only truly cared about two things in the whole world. Maki and Hito. And they were at his apartment, safe. He hummed at the woman and rolled his eye in her direction, looking away from the rather risque novel that he was reading. Tatsumaki is my friend, she eyeballed him, and I have very few friends. He nodded, knowing what she was getting at. He had the same problem himself. Yes? I need to know if you're jerking her around or not. Anko set herself in a confrontational stance, and Kakashi was surprised enough that his book dropped from eye level to his chin. He stared at the blue-haired woman, and she growled, "Oh, come off it! You know exactly what I mean by that!" I really don't, he murmured, and she stomped her foot in mock tantrum. Are you jerking Maki around? It's not that hard of a question to answer. Kakashi fully lowered his book and stepped off the side of the road, jumping up to a relatively quiet rooftop. Anko followed closely. Now, he tucked the book into his weapons pouch. What exactly do you mean by jerking her around? Anko stared at him for several moments and then her eyes widened. You really don't know, do you? She got a raised eyebrow from Kakashi in response and then she sighed. You don't. You socially retarded idiot. Kakashi paused at that and then half smiled. Yes, I am socially incompetent. I can fake it well though. And that's the problem. We think you know what you're doing when you don't. Anko tapped her toes, crossing her arms over her chest. It was a nice chest, but not attached to as interesting a person as Maki's chest was. Kakashi! Kakashi looked back up to her face and saw her deep scowl. Yes, Anko-san? Anko took a deep breath to calm herself and centered herself. Kakashi, you're living with the woman. You are raising a child with her. Do you plan on staying with her exclusively? Kakashi blinked and then nodded. Yep. Ah! You make me so mad! Anko stomped the roof and almost pouted. Listen up! Hirohito loves you. Kakashi smiled, a warm feeling in his chest. It made him giddy sometimes that Hito thought of him as a father. Not only does Hito love you, but Maki loves you too. That caused Kakashi to stop. Wait, what? Maki loves me? Anko stared at him in disbelief. Ah! She's head over heels for you! Oh. Kakashi drew the sand out thinking about that. Really? Really? Anko insisted. And every time I talk to her about you, she's depressed! That confused the copyman and he lifted a finger in question. She loves me and is depressed about loving me? Because she doesn't know if you love her. Anko spoke to him as though he didn't have the mental capabilities of a 2-year-old, and Kakashi knew exactly how much a 2-year-old could understand. Well, obviously I do, Kakashi scoffed. I certainly wouldn't be with her if I didn't. He trailed off and had to take a mental step back. He never admitted it before to himself or to anyone else that he did indeed love Yamamoto Tatsumaki. He loved her. Kakashi. In love. How novel. How exciting. Kakashi lit up and studied his comrade with an intensity that he'd never used outside of learning the shinobi arts before. Is there a special time that I should tell her? He asked. He knew that he was socially retarded and he didn't want to mess something like this up again, since he'd apparently messed it up the first time. Anko took a physical step back under his scrutiny and then licked her lips, looking confused at the sudden change in their conversation dynamic and a little like a cornered cat. Whenever it feels like a good time? Kakashi hunted her across the rooftop, stalking her just a little. But I'm socially incompetent. How am I supposed to know when that is? At the very least, Anko checked over her shoulder at the approaching edge of the building. Before you ask her to marry you! Kakashi kept stalking forwards and Anko was forced to dive off the edge of the building. She hit the ground in a run and was out of sight in seconds. Kakashi stood at the edge and rocked on his heels, thinking about the last thing that Anko had said to him. Ask her to marry him. It was probably the most perfect idea ever presented to him. Now all he needed was to find a ring.